Well, good afternoon and welcome live to another episode here. Love to see you guys. It's been great seeing all of you guys. I've been traveling. Conventions have opened up. I was down in Dallas for a software convention last weekend, 2 weekends ago. And then I was in Georgia visiting a customer and visiting some other people too as well. So the conventions are opening up. There was 1,100 people at the software convention in Dallas, and it was fantastic. And it seemed like there's a lot of vaccinated people there and hardly any masks. So I think the government's finally got this thing under wraps as we move forward. And it's great to be out and seeing people once again. And, you know, I really just wanted to bring someone that I've known for well over 10 plus years, and also a partner with Becker Logistics. And she's not only a partner for us and does fantastic jobs, but she's also a friend. And she's a great individual. She's at Avalon Risk. They handle a lot of our insurances for our company. And also, her name is Jaki. Jaki Ferenz, come on in. How are you?
Hey, Shem, thank you so much for the introduction and thank you for having me. I'm doing well, right? I'm alive. I'm kicking. What can I say?
Absolutely. And you work with Michael Brown, and he just had a promotion just recently also, right?
Yes, you are correct. He is now the president of our company, and we're really excited, very much excited. Yeah.
That's great. And, you know, with you two, there's a lot of other people I could mention at your company, but I really just wanted to acknowledge you and Michael and Avalon for really, you know, you've been writing our insurance for the last, I don't know, since 2016. And it's been great. You've been there in our deepest, darkest moments, and we really do appreciate all of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We love working with you.
Well, thank you. You know, I wanted to bring up a couple of things that I actually heard while I was down in Dallas. You know, there's some regulations on the scene, and I heard this thing called Texas Bill 19. I was hoping maybe you can just share a little bit from the insurance side. What are brokers and or carriers actually dealing with this new regulation that they're trying to get passed? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's the Texas House Bill 19, correct? And virtually what it's doing is, you know, in theory, is it's trying to protect, you know, because there's a lot of nuclear verdicts, right, that are going on. Which a nuclear verdict is, you know, a verdict that is settled for 10 million or more. And on average, when it comes to a motor carrier that gets in an accident and there's bodily injury that's incurred, these verdicts are hitting more along the lines of like 30 million plus. And the reason that they're seeing that these verdicts are going so high, I mean, we've seen ones that have been like settled at 101 million, or, you know, or even more than that. And the challenge is that, and I don't know if you've heard of, it's called the reptile theory. And it's where the plaintiff attorney is going in, and not only are they focusing on trying to show proof of the motor carrier and where they're liable in the accident, but they go way beyond what the motor carrier, beyond like maybe faulty equipment, and they really try to you know, vilify the motor carrier's company, and bring in things that have actually nothing to do with the actual accident. And so, you know, you've got these, you know, these people that are, you know, trying to decipher the liability, who don't understand transportation. And, you know, the more they hear this horrible things about this company and this particular individual, and all these things that have happened over the years, and again, nothing to do with the actual accident. And so that's where you can build upon what maybe should have been settled at like 2 million or 5 million. Again, you know, it's being blown, you know, way out there. And I'm not saying that, you know, if bodily injury or death is incurred, I mean, that's catastrophic. And I'm not saying that you observe something back if somebody, was liable in this accident. But, there's a point where it's just gotten out of control. And so Texas is really, they're trying to better protect the motor carrier so that it really focuses on the accident at hand. And I hope I answered that of what's going on. And for us on the insurance side, we really, we look at this as, because if somebody's insured at like, for our auto liability for 10 million, if that gets exhausted, it's really also putting a lot on the insurance company and the payouts. And so if we can kind of get it under control, because the more these payouts go, the insurance is going to go up. And we don't want to be in a situation where insurance companies are saying like, look, we can't insure like to 10 million to 20 million because it's going to get gobbled up. So just gaining some control, it's I think a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to really look at it. And I know, tort law has been really looked at to see how we can, put limits on things. I just watched a movie called Worth, and they were talking about the 9/11 people and, the process of how they evaluated how much a person's life is actually worth. And, I think when we look at these type of accidents, and understand we're not attorneys, neither Jackie or myself,
Okay.
and we're not advisors. So this is for entertainment purposes only, just to really get two people that work together and give you a little look into our businesses and how we operate. And we just try to give this information out. We're not giving away any secret sauce. It's just, a really good client like myself, hopefully, and a good partner like Jackie and her organization, bringing this information and being able to talk about it when this is what's going on today, and it's real. So when we look at that movie Worth, it really identifies what's the true worth of a human being. I know in the situation with police and firemen, they usually, if someone dies on duty, the police department or fire department gives something like $250,000. Now, that does not replace what that head of household could have done for the family. And it's a terrible situation. And I've known a lot of police officers and firemen that have passed away personally. And it's devastating to the family. But at the same token, at what limit, right? What was that person going to be able to generate over the next 10, 20 years? And to really say, this is what it is. Instead of having, as you call it, that nuclear or what did you call it, reptile, going through every single fine nook and cranny. I'm also looking at the XRP crypto to look how the SEC is investigating them and what's going on there. So when we look at case law and look at these cases to really see where they're stretching and really grabbing at things that aren't really pertaining to the case, but bringing it so that they can show that here's harm that they did, or they're doing this or doing that. I mean, running a business and being an entrepreneur is really tough. But when we look at this, we really want to look at how can we protect ourselves while protecting the population out there as well, and being insured. And that's what this is all about, is insurance. So when we look at this, Jackie, how are things like this impacting our insurance costs pre-COVID and, after COVID?
Well, as far as pre-COVID, and going back to, I like to use the example with the auto liability part of it, with the nuclear verdicts, we were seeing pre-COVID that the rates were definitely going up. And as a motor carrier for getting the primary auto liability, it's been a struggle, and it's been the rate increase. I would say folks have been seeing that for the past 3 years, and now what it's also impacted is on the transportation broker auto liability. So for you to protect yourself, if you get pulled in because you hired the motor carrier gets in an accident, bodily injury. All of a sudden we realize like, oh, you arranged the freight. And so you get pulled into the lawsuit. Well, that portion of coverage did go, I would say for really comprehensive coverage, we did see some increases. That's kind of flattened out, at least for the markets that Avalon presents to our customers. But yeah, I would say with auto liability, we're hopeful that it'll calm down, in 2022, because those increases have been implemented for a few years. But yeah, I mean, that's just an example, but I don't know. Did you want me to go over other lines of insurance that we're seeing increases, or we're predicting more increase?
Well, let's just, what are you seeing right now that companies are making sure that they have insurance policies on to really protect themselves, and maybe limits, right? Let's just take a look at that so that, people can identify, are they really, fully insured to the limits that they should be? Or are they carrying something like, executives and board insurance to make sure, the decisions that they make as an executive team or board, they're making the right choices? And are they protected, or is this a blind spot for them?
So if you want to talk about what we call executive business risks,
Right.
and one of them in particular is employee practices liability. In a pre-COVID environment, we were seeing increase in premiums for employee practices liability, and a lot of it had to do with the Me Too movement. The social, what has been placed out there for the nation to really see as far as injustices go, that will trigger for in an employee environment for employees to realize, like, you know what, this has happened to me and I'm going to do something about it. And so having those types of claims have definitely increased in a pre-COVID environment. And now we have in this COVID environment where, I say about Me Too, but also with the Black Lives Matter movement. But then you go into working from home or furloughs or terminate, here's companies that have had to terminate their employees and keep some of them on board, but not others. And then the employees getting upset because they feel like there's been wrongful termination. And so there's that claims that arise on that. And so employee practices liability, what is there for is to protect you as the employer if you get pulled into discrimination, sexual harassment claims. There's age discrimination claims, wage and hour discrepancies. The big one, though, I would say right now that's really on the rise that they're seeing is wrongful termination. And so and there's just a lot that's still brewing. And so unfortunately, I feel pretty comfortable, unfortunately, saying is that for 2022, that particular coverage, you're going to continue to see increases. And as far as limits go, I can't necessarily say like what limits. That's really a business decision. I'm not trying to pass the buck here, but if I were to tell you, you really need to get $1 million, and then you get a $2 million claim and you come chasing after me, then we've got problems. And so I always say to, if you have questions about limits, they start usually at, like for just using employee practices liability as an example, at 250,000, but you can go up $1 million. The options are available. Talking to your attorney is always a really good thing. And then, of course, knowing what you're getting, understanding the coverage, the exposures that you're mostly concerned about, and then making sure you have the proper coverage in place. And if you don't have the proper coverage in place, are you okay with that? Are you okay that they're excluding wage and hour? Because that in particular is a very hard coverage to get. Directors and officers, you had brought up, that is basically covering the executives of your company, the owners, the directors, your board members, your executives. It's also protecting your corporation. Should you have a third-party liability lawsuit on your hands. And for that, we'd say in the COVID environment, that is also a hardened market for that insurance. And unfortunately, that rates are we do believe will continue to go up. That's what we're being told in the universe of insurance, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And thank you for that, Jackie. It's just really good to get this information out there for for people so that they understand how to protect themselves. I mean, I believe all businesses are trying to do the right thing. And we have an HR department that really makes sure that we're doing the right thing, and we have values and principles that we follow. And, a lot of companies need to know there's a lot of risk there as they go forward, and they have to protect themselves, and they need a good partner like you guys to really just be there for them in their corner, because you guys are always there for us for, everything that comes across. And luckily, knock on wood, we've been doing pretty good. And we want to just make sure that we have that insurance. That's what insurance is for. So as we look at this, when you talked about all that, the one thing that popped up, and I don't want this to turn into this, but when we went to Dallas, I saw new regulations that are trying to be passed in our state of Illinois, one state. We're a Democratic state. So it'll probably get passed. And that is, if you have over 100 employees, everyone must be vaccinated. So, looking at that with a fine tooth comb, because we do have over 100 employees and it does impact us. I could see how, if someone isn't vaccinated and we terminate them, and we say the federal regulation is this, where does that put us? And I don't want to get into that conversation, but these are things that are out there right now. The main thing that I want to come to you next on is the asset insurance versus the broker insurance. What's the difference there? What's that looking like on the horizon as we enter Q4?
So asset-based insurance, and we'll use motor carrier as an example. What is required for them as far as insurance goes, if in order to have the motor carrier authority, you are required to have auto liability insurance, and you have to show proof. So for public safety purposes, you as individuals, we will know that XYZ motor carrier, they have coverage. And the minimum limit for that is, oddly enough, it's 750,000. The standard of what's out there and what you, I'm sure, require, I know you do, is that they have 1 million, right? Because you want them to have 1 million. I mean, cutting down to 750,000, in a lawsuit, that's just not going to get you very far. I mean, 1 million is kind of not getting you too far, but it's a heck of a lot better than 750,000. The other thing that with motor carriers is that it's not required. It used to be where they'd have to show a filing, but not anymore, is, as you know, is the motor truck cargo liability insurance.
Right.
And that's for whenever they're on the road, moving the cargo, motor carriers that are crossing state lines, interstate motor carriers, they are responsible for, cargo liability, Carmack Amendment. And if they damage or lose the cargo and it's proven that they're liable, then they have to pay out on the cargo loss. And so having that coverage is really important that they have it. As you know, though, the unfortunate part is you work with so many motor carriers, and it's impossible to know exactly what they have as far as actual coverage it goes. And it's not until something happens that you really test the waters, and no policy is alike. There's some really good comprehensive policies. It's just like anything else with insurance. There's really good ones, and then there's ones that are very narrow on coverage. But that's another insurance that definitely that motor carriers should have. And then there is general liability. People don't, there's a lot of confusion of what is general liability coverage? And would you like for me to explain how that coverage works?
Sure. Yeah. Give us an idea, because it gets looked over a lot. And a lot of people that I know, they're like, I don't need general liability. So let's go over that just a little bit.
Okay, so for a motor carrier, the reason why we recommend that motor carriers have this insurance is because it covers not when they're driving, not when they're on the road, because that's what auto liability insurance does, is when they got the keys in, they're driving down the road, auto liability insurance is there to cover bodily injury of a third party. When it comes to general liability, that is whenever they're not running the engine, and it's covering bodily injury types of damages that could happen at their premises, like at their terminal, if they have a warehouse terminal. There's a lot of things that could, just trying to do the right thing, you can open the back of a trailer and injure a third party that at the shipper's dock. And so having coverage for that would be really important. Or, and it also goes beyond that, like as a trucker's operations, like if they were at a truck stop and they, injured somebody, and there's a lot of crazy things that happen out there. So having that protection is really good. Well, really good, really important to have. And then you would ask about for a transportation broker, what insurances should a transportation broker have? What we recommend is that they have have what's called contingent motor truck cargo. What that is there for is when the motor carrier damages the cargo, liability is proven, and the motor carrier says, nope, I'm not paying. Or you vetted them and you found, like, okay, they have the motor truck cargo coverage, should be covering it, but the insurance declines it because it, whatever the commodity is, well, they're only, insuring for lumber because that's all they said that they move, and we're not covering anything else, and they're moving refrigerated goods. Well, you want to have a backstop that will provide the coverage when the motor carrier refuses or can't, doesn't have the financial wherewithal, whatever it may be. So you have that, that form of protection. It's a really good interest for your shipper. It's, and it's a lot of shippers require that you show proof that you have that, because they probably have seen claims where they weren't paid and they're looking at you as a transportation broker to make them whole because you arranged for the transportation. We also recommend, and most of our customers have too, is errors and omissions coverage. And so errors and omissions, it's like malpractice insurance, and it's for cargo related. You may have not given the proper instructions. If it's a refrigerated goods, maybe you didn't mention how you should set the temperature, assuming that the motor carrier knows or can read on the box what the temperature should be. And then lo and behold, it doesn't get set properly. Well, the motor carrier is like, you didn't give me the proper instructions, so I'm not at fault here. And so, your shipper's looking at you like, you shoulda, coulda, woulda, shoulda known, right? So they're coming after you. So if you're found negligent, you need to make them whole again. And there's areas where people can go after you for anything, right? And having that form of protection to provide legal defense is, versus having out of pocket. And then there is, also the contingent auto liability, or otherwise known as transportation broker liability, TBL, you may call it, or transportation broker auto liability. What that coverage is for is what we talked about earlier, where you broker out a load to the motor carrier gets in an accident, injures somebody, takes out a bridge. All the above happens in the accident, which would be horrendous, but it could happen, right? They get pulled in a lawsuit, and then your company, they find out like, ooh, there's a transportation broker that was involved in arranging the freight. We're going to pull you in the lawsuit. You want to have protection, and to have a legal defense, to have a program that is going to provide that for you. And if you are found negligent, that's going to be able to pay up to the limit of the liability you have as far as your insurance limit goes. And that I would say that 95% of our customer base for transportation brokers have all three of those. Years ago, it wasn't the case. It just was contingent cargo, and we don't need this coverage. But as these unfortunate lawsuits, and you being the potential exposure for you getting brought in to a claim is unfortunately growing. So important to have. And then I could go on and on about it.
Oh, I know you. I mean, I love when you and I are together, and just wherever we're at, in the hallway, at the bar, wherever, we could just talk for hours, Jackie, which is great. Yes. Which is, it's just been great having this relationship with you. And then, being able to share this with the carriers that are out there, and the brokers that are out there, and employees at said companies, as well as our customers. So it's really great to just have an opportunity of sitting down and speaking with you and going over the details of what's out there for people and how can they protect themselves. And I think Avalon has done a great job for us and really being there for us over, since 2016 and our friendship for the last well over 10 years.
Thank you. Oh, the feeling is mutual. And it's a loaded question asking about insurance, because I could go on. Like workers' comp, executive risk, like we're talking about, employee practices, and I mean, there's a lot. It just what matters is what matters to you. What is important for you. What are your exposures, and how you want to be protected and protect your business, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we had one question here too, is when's the time when having insurance really paid off? And I would say right now, every day, because, the more and more freight that one moves, the more claims you have. If you're a shipper, if you're a carrier, or if you're a broker, you really need to have insurance. And that's when it pays off. It's just knowing that you have someone by your side that's there all the time, that when something does arise, that you're protected as you move forward. And we're all trying to do the right thing. Within your Avalon, you guys are doing the right thing to do good by your employees and by your partner, your clients, I should say, and making sure that they're taken care of. We're doing the same thing, making sure that our customers are taken care of, our carriers are taken care of, as well as our employees. So as we move forward, everyone's doing the right thing, but to have that security there that kind of says, if something were to happen, if something just went awry, we have this here as our advocate. And a lot of times we fail to do that, or we're not protected enough to have the right advocate, or enough advocates, meaning limits, protecting us. So I appreciate and acknowledge you and your company to come on here and just really share with everyone, so that it opened up something, and maybe we enroll them in a possibility of working with your company as well.
Oh, well, thank you. And I think with what you're saying too is that whether it be Avalon or other insurance brokers, there's wonderful, very skilled expertise in the transportation industry. Other insurance brokers that what we always say is like, your business is complicated, and if you're going to look into these insurance, how to best protect yourself, partnering with somebody who eats, lives, breathes your business. It's like, how do you choose the dentist that you go to? How do you choose with your doctor, your family doctor? How do you vet them, right? It's important. It should be important to you. And the same thing is for, how you choose your insurance broker. Do they, are they going to really protect you? Are they going to take care, are they going to bring you the best options so you can make a choice that you can feel comfortable about? And do they understand your business? Like, because we hear, often where, unfortunately, there'll be like maybe a local agency that does wonderful things for for all sorts of different businesses, but they they can find the insurance, but is it really covering what is needed, or is it missing certain coverages? And does the agent understand what really you should be getting? And again, I mean, it's just like, yes, choosing your doctor, choosing your dentist, I would think it's an important thing.
Absolutely. Well, Jaki, thank you so much for being on here. I really appreciate you sharing your time and your wisdom. So thank you. And our viewers, thank you as well. So until next time, thank you very much. And this is Jim Becker signing off. Any last words, Jaki?
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. And you are a dear friend. So this has been really easy. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too.